All right, so here we go. So welcome to this edition of Blind Ambition with your buddy Jack Kelly. And today we have an all-star panel, all-star tech panel. So everything you wanted to know about the tech scene, about tech recruiting, who's hiring, who's not hiring, what's hot, what's not hot, what happened in 2024, where we think the tech market is going to be moving forward. And we'll start out. Hey, Jennifer,
Yes,
can you share what you do and like what you specialize in within recruiting?
absolutely. So I'm Jennifer Wiedeberg, and I specialize in recruiting technology professionals within financial services. Primarily, my client base is in New York, but we've also expanded to other locations like Austin, like Tampa, like Carolinas. Got some things going on in London as well. So that's our primary focus right now in full time.
Yeah, when you do full-time recruiting, is it for tech and other things, or is it tech within financial services? How does it
Mainly
play
for
out?
tech teams within financial services. So anything from like a software engineer to a product person to the architects who are kind of setting the strategy for everything as well.
Now, how is that? Is that like, you know, I'm blind. You may, if you go on there, like they have egos. So is it a thing if you're recruiting instead of MAGA or Apple, you're recruiting for Citigroup or Deutsche Bank or Morgan Stanley? Is there a difference? Random will, what, like, is there like how is that? How does that play out?
So
Yeah, I
I
think,
also,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I also have like the same specialization as Jen. That's why we both kind of like resonate with each other. I
Hmm.
think. Also, tech and financial services. At least with what I do, I mean, most of the clients I do aren't necessarily in New York. They're scattered throughout the rest of the country. But they're, I mean, tech software engineers obviously have high egos, but they're a lot easier to deal with in financial services versus the fangs that are making $1 million a year. Because there's a lot of like how do I say, a lot of people like prestige that comes with that. So if you don't come with them with a role that's above a certain level, it's like they scoff at you. Whereas the financial services area, I think a lot of people are more reasonable to deal with. Now, I'm lucky. My main client that I recruit for has a pretty big pay package for the financial services industry, so it makes it easier to do outbound for them. But even for my other client who has like below average
Hmm.
salary and pay rates, like I never deal with like any the stuff that you might see on Blind. Those types of engagements.
For people who don't know much about how the recruiting and particularly the tech area plays out, for recruiters, how, is it that you full time or sometimes they're, contracts? What do you see in your line of work? Do you see a little bit of both?
So for
Well,
me right now, I'm like fully contract. Our perm division didn't have the best last couple of years with since the Fed started hiking rates, but 2024, knock on wood, and hopefully 2025 is projected to be a little bit better for us, thank God. But a lot of contract from where I'm sitting because it's easier to scale up, easier to scale down, you know, goes both ways when you do contract. Because if you cut a bunch of contractors, it's not layoffs, right? Um,
Mhm.
we are technically their employer. They're going through us to say company, so they can fire a bunch of people at once, and that's what they did in 2023, unfortunately for us. But it's much easier to hire and fire, scale up and scale down that way. So that's what's been, doing well for us.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, but Will.
I work with a lot of startups, and what I
Mm.
what I'm seeing is we support a lot of full-time hiring, but for like some of the manager roles that we're working on right now, I'm seeing that the managers will manage a full-time US based team, and then a lot of these manager roles are also looking to have contractors that they'll manage both in the US and offshore. So I'm definitely seeing companies are trying to still be lean. I think the past few years have kind of taught a few things to leadership about like how big your team should get and what they're composed of. So, I'm definitely seeing less full-time hiring than I saw before the pandemic.
Is that why you were seeing more contract? And for people who are not aware, maybe you could help and explain what's the difference between, and this is what I think freaks people out. They really job seekers. They don't understand the difference between, like a contract recruiter, an executive recruiter, a staffing agency. So when you say contract, what does that mean? So people in the audience, when they get maybe approached by someone like yourself, they'll understand what this is all about.
Yeah, so some companies that hire contractors to augment their full-time employee base. So instead of hiring a new full-time employee where they're, entitled to all employee benefits, they have, certain protections. A lot of companies, they'll hire contractors either through like a staffing partner or maybe a consulting company to, work on whatever projects that they're working on to make sure they get done. So I think that there was a lot of full-time hiring during the pandemic and, budgets kind of seemed endless. And now that companies are trying to be more lean instead of going to hire full-time employees or recruiters, I've come from the TA background, of course, they could bring in contractors to kind of hit their goals.
For the person who's a contractor, I mean, how is that? Is that a tough grind? Because are you always trying to find a new job? Or is it like, hey, I don't have to worry about dealing with this boss that I hate all the time. I could just do this gig for 6 months and then go on to something else cool. What can you maybe share like what it's like?
I
It's a
mean,
little bit of both. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Will. I'll go after you.
So I'm definitely seeing more folks are, you know, a lot of companies they want their employees in office these days 5 days a week. So I think a lot of people that got accustomed to working from home, they're having a hard time finding another full-time remote role. Whereas I think some contractors can offer some more flexibility. So I think like that's kind of like what some people are kind of giving up to be contractors. But it really depends on the industry and what the contract is. But a lot of them are like anywhere between 3 to 6 months or more. So you could probably have some time to plan to fill whatever gaps that you might have. But I'll let random recruiter go.
So there's like two types of people that we target. One, you'll have your career contractors. You like a lot of these career contractors, like if you just take your pure hourly rate and compare it to what your hourly rate, if you're gonna take your total comp right now and put it into a rate, like you can make more money as a contractor, at least with the clients I have. Like I know it might be different with other clients. So, but that's what makes it easy for what I do. Um, so you can make more money as a contractor in certain areas, especially like financial services. If we're talking like investment banks and hedge funds, like these quants can make like $1,000 a day, if not more, right? Um, you might not get that if you're full time, and then you obviously get the flexibility. You don't have to stay at a certain company for 5 years at a time, maybe not 6 months, but a lot of our engagements are 12, 18, 24. So it's still fairly long term, right? And that's like the average tenure of a tech employee in FANG anyway, right? Um, so that's the first type of profile. And then obviously with a lot of layoffs and RTO mandates, there's a lot of misplaced people that were full-time struggling to find work. You can still bring those people on a calculated risk. Obviously, I'm not going to call a guy who was laid off from Netflix making 500 grand to take a $180,000 job. I'm asking that guy to quit in 3 seconds. But there are people that maybe have worked at Amazon in the DMV area are making like 200 something that might consider switching to my job because the writing's on the wall with layoffs. They're going to only have to go to the office twice a week versus 5 days a week. And it might be like a 30 grand pay cut, but 30 grand when you're making that much after taxes in the DMV area is not that bad if you value work-life balance over money, of course. Obviously, you have to look at each candidate and stuff. With those cases, you're kind of taking a bet that that specific person won't be a flight risk because you take the same parameters from that candidate with another candidate, the same situation, that other person might be a flight risk if that makes any sort of sense. I know I'm kind of rambling, but yeah, those are like the two profiles that we typically
Yeah,
look
it's
for.
very enlightening because, for a lot of people are not aware of how these things play out. So it sounds like if you're a quant person working at Citigroup or Morgan Stanley and you're making $1,000 a day, that's not too shabby. So as long as you can keep that rolling and then maybe roll it into another one and you can do it
Oh
maybe
yeah.
remote, that's not a bad gig, right? That seems pretty cool. Like Jennifer, do you place those kind of folks as well, or you're more full-time
I
within?
really focus more on the full-time side of
Mhm.
everything. That's what I really enjoy doing, but I can see there, I mean, even if you look at the 10 Qs, for example, from a place like Robert Half, they've got their perm is only at 379 million in revenue, right? And we've got their contracts are at like 2.57 billion, right? So it's huge business. So
Wait,
Yeah.
2.7 billion for just
2.57 billion reported on their 10Q
and this is for what? This is for
for their revenue for Robert Half, right?
wow.
So we're talking
Yes.
about, so for job seekers who might not have considered that, right? Like there's billion with a B market, right? And there's a $1 million market as well, right? So if you want to increase, odds of success and your chances for luck and things like that, it's something to consider for sure. Now, there's also some rules about how long you can consult in financial services too.
Mhm.
So there's a 2-year rule,
Mhm.
for certain firms and for certain things. So that's just something to be aware of as well.
Like Jennifer, how are you perceived recruiting for, let's say, I don't know, let's say Morgan Stanley or Deutsche Bank or Citigroup? Do they internally, how do those tech people feel? Do they feel like we're second-class citizens compared to working, for FAANG companies, or they don't
I think
care?
there's a sticker shock with that
Yeah.
comes along with seeing these kids that don't understand business logic and process and
Okay.
things like that, and have basically had to center a div thinking that they are worth $300,000 when these guys who've been working 25 years are making the same thing.
All
Right.
right. So when you say sticker shock, let's talk dollar. Can you share? All right. So how much, let's say at one of these big banks, let's say top tier Bank of America or what have you,
Yeah.
how much, and you're working in, tech, and I know there's so many different variations of tech, but working there, like how much money do these people pull in, and how are they perceived within the organization?
I mean, the tech within these organizations
Yeah.
is, super corporate. It's buttoned up. They definitely understand all of the moving pieces that they have to work in. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
really constrained environment. You have to deal with regulations. You have to deal with that are external. You got to deal with the rules that are internal. You can't do anything too flashy or crazy because you're dealing with a lot of money. So there's a lot of risk that's inherent in the system. But we're really looking at what has happened in the last few years on the perm side is that they've made adjustments to try to attract younger talent
Mhm.
to these organizations by adjusting the compensation. It hasn't adjusted to the big tech kind of dollars, right?
Mhm.
Haven't done that. But getting to work on real problems that are moving money around, they're trying to really capture people like that, versus some of the flashy things that tech does. Because financial services is something that's always going to be needed. But I mean, you're really looking at, for a mid-level person in the 150s type of with base salary. And then, depending on the bank, a lot of banks kind of changed the way that they did their compensation as well. Because you had somebody that from like UBS come into Deutsche Bank. So they kind of UBSified, some of the comp plan there, which is going to be, higher on the base, lower on the bonus type of a thing.
So
Right.
when you said the 150, that's 150K plus bonus and what have you. Is that
Yeah.
someone just starting out as a
That
software
one,
engineer?
that would be more mid-level. So I'm talking like,
Really?
yeah. So I'm talking, maybe like 3 to 4 years of experience, you know, and then as we're moving up the food chain, like you're going up to like 250, 300, depending on the, you know, depending on the business line, of course, right? But like you're seeing people in AI that are doing amazing things within financial services that are doing quite well for themselves.
You know, glad you brought that for all three of you. What do you see with AI? Because everything you read about, that's where it's going. And then also, I don't know, should we believe like what Google is saying, hey, like 20% of, you know, can meet as many people working in this space because of AI? Are you bouncing, bumping into this? Are you seeing like a big change with AI and people losing jobs without it? Or is it enhancing jobs?
AI is going to hit the banks last, banks and
Yeah.
pharma, because there's so much red tape. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
this is why I have to be anonymous, of course. Like when it comes to banks, right? They're not necessarily, you don't think of innovative technologists there, right? Sometimes their technology stacks might be lagging a couple years, of course, because again, money comes before bringing in new tech. But like AI is going to hit banking last because there's just so much red tape that and regulations that Jen was alluding to that you have to follow, and it's going to be a much more conservative industry when it comes to that stuff. Where maybe fintech companies like a Stripe you might see it, but like if we're talking traditional banks, I would bet that they're last to implement this stuff. I know like JP Morgan Chase has announced that they're investing a lot on tech, but in terms of to what extent, that's where they're going to kind of be probably like the last players to enter it.
Do the banks deal with this legacy tech that's really outdated? Because I remember recruiting people for Citigroup, and they would always complain. They call it Shitty Group because a lot of the tech stack they were using was just like driving everyone crazy. And then for the areas I dealt with, which was more compliance and anti-money laundering, what have you, and they constantly get fines. And I don't think they were doing it purposely being bad. It's just the tech like didn't catch up with the regulations that you talk about, Jennifer. So it is it what we like what do you do, like how does this play out? Do you stay within the financial side, or do you eventually maybe go to the real, the big tech kind of companies, or is it really this is a personality thing, what you feel comfortable with?
So I'm doing a
Um,
lot of AI hiring right
Yeah.
now, and I'm seeing, I'm seeing candidates are coming from a few different places. Some are kind of at where what you're describing right now. They're at a bigger legacy company, and I think the good thing about those companies is that they are sitting on a lot of data that LLMs are actually like really useful for.
Mhm.
So it's actually been a good spot for me to look for people because they're not getting paid as much as some of these other companies that I'm about to talk about. So there's some little nuggets, solid teams in some of these legacy companies, you know, some banks, big insurance companies, maybe some older tech companies. Um, some of the consulting companies, like big four consulting companies, they have AI teams. Some are better than others. And then another place where I'm seeing a lot of folks come out of or that exists with AI experience, because there's not a lot, at least with LLM experience, are like the companies working on foundational models, the open AIs of the world, Anthropic, um, Gemini. But those folks are untouchable. They're making millions of dollars if they know what they're doing. So prying them out of there is not going to happen for at least a lot of the companies that I'm working with. They're in the startup space. But a lot of the companies that I'm working with now, they're making use of the models, and they have, something that they're doing with one or multiple models to make a new kind of service. And there's a lot of companies that are popping up like that now that are hiring people, and they don't have high budgets, so it's challenging, at least in the startup space. But those legacy companies are actually a good place to look for to kind of go back to what you're talking about. I think that there are some good people there.
What do
two
you
two
folks think?
bank
Yeah.
I was going to
No.
say two banks that actually have a good tech stack are JP Morgan and Capital One. At least when it comes to like software
Yeah.
engineers, like their Java developers and their data engineers. And you'll see people go from those two companies into like a big tech every now and then too. Um, so yeah, not every bank is going to be tech forward, but if, at least in my corner of the market, if I had to pick two traditional banks that are tech forward, I'd probably say those two are targets.
Agreed. You know, because you got some of the banks that are still using that proprietary language for some of their internal things as well.
Now, I don't think you see as much layoffs in tech at the financial firms compared to big tech. Is that true, or just that, it just seems that you get more press about it? Is it a safer job within the financial services?
I mean, that's why I recruit for it, right? I mean, it's because it's so closely tied to everything. It's, some things can go down and that's going to be okay. Everything's going to be able to function, but financial services going down is going to be a huge problem for everybody. So I want to be right in the center of the action and right where decisions are being made.
Will, if you don't
Yeah,
mind, Will, can I just go back to what you were saying about AI? Klarna, just like the other day, was basically the CEO was like, hey, we're going to let it go, maybe 20% of the people, and we're not going to hire anyone new. Is that hyperbole, or is this really happening?
I'm not. I think it's too soon to tell, but I think that's where the hockey puck's kind of trending.
Mhm.
A lot of like the AI roles that I'm seeing companies are hiring for are doing the goal would be to do things that like maybe a few people on their team would be doing. So maybe it's like consolidating a few roles into one, or maybe they're getting to do something that they, maybe couldn't have done before that like a standard engineer wouldn't be able to do. So yeah, it's hard to say, but I think it's a lot of companies are looking to bring in or add prompt engineering, AI engineering to what they're already doing, for sure.
If you don't mind my asking, we're coming close to the end of the year, how how has it been? Is, generally speaking, recruiting for 2024 within the tech space, particularly, let's say, with financial, but then also in other areas? How's it been? Has it been a rough go? Has it been terrible, okay, medium, good? What would you classify it as, basically?
So the company I work for does a lot of Fortune 500. We have a lot of the Fortune 500 clients. So while I have my little market here, I do obviously have access and data and talk with people that are selling to a bunch of these other industries. So my 2023 was depressing, um, extremely depressing. A lot of contractors are cut, but 2024 has been very good for me, thank God. The two biggest clients that I support have IT budget spend equivalent to 2019, which is obviously a good thing. Two other big consumer banks we work with have also hired at a steady pace as well, equivalent to that. Some of our other areas, like healthcare, took a huge hit. Essentially, a couple major healthcare companies have literally outsourced everything since 2022, the second half. And on top of that, like some of our people, unfortunately, were let go because they aren't bringing any recs and obviously not making any placements. Telecom, uh, same thing, took a hit, but this second half of 2024 started coming back. Pharmaceuticals, the two big Fortune 500 companies we work with, same thing as healthcare, never really recovered. And they used to be like two of our biggest clients. So I think it really depends, to give you the short answer. But for me, at least, 2024, I'm finally catching up to where I was in 2023, or sorry, the second half of 2022, before like everything started really going down.
Jennifer and Will, how did you see 2024?
I expanded into some other markets as well. While there was a lot of consolidation that was happening, within my client base and in industry in particular, and especially focusing on full-time placements. So I actually have expanded into manufacturing, where there is a really good opportunity because there's some older, people that don't have any technology experience at all. Like we're talking like 20 plus years of doing everything manually, right? And now you're going to have a new set of folks coming in who everybody underneath them is going to understand technology, is going to be able to provide, something a little bit different for them to see. So I really, the theme for me this year was finding people that could interface with clients and also have some sort of technical expertise. And I kind of took that theming to manufacturing for this one particular client. And then I was also referred in for a startup that specialized in defense that I'm working with as well.
Yeah, that's great. Is it hard to pivot and get those different type of clients, or it's just after a while it's like, okay?
Well, I mean, one of them just came to me, because then that was from, posting content, being, consistent and having them reach out to me. And then the other one was, a referral from somebody that I'd worked with in financial services after, they'd merged with Bloomberg.
Yeah, I mean, for me, things have definitely trended a lot better this year than last year. I think a lot of companies are raising Series A rounds. Some are getting Series B, which I know was more challenging last year than this year. Than this year. The foundational, I mean, GPT's been out for about 2 years now, so I think people are really starting to see like the implications of like what AI could do in day-to-day business. So I think like earlier this year and this year, a lot more companies have started, they're raising capital. I'm pretty much focused in the startup space, and I'm definitely getting a lot more activity this December than I did last December. So I'm looking forward to next year for sure.
But that's really positive, because usually December, it slows down. Everyone's planning their vacations, and it's hard to get things done. But you're seeing traction now. That's a very good. It seems like that's a very good sign.
Maybe
Definitely
not
a
as
good
much this
indicator.
week, but we're slowing down a lot. I mean, I was talking to a founder, and we just started working with him this week, and he said he wants to see some resumes, but he doesn't want to interview people until January. So
Isn't
we'll
the
be getting
worst? It's like,
resumes
oh
to him.
yeah, let's get back mid-January. And so then you get getting in touch in January. It's like, oh, well, give it a week or so. It's like, oh Jesus, let's just do it now.
Yeah.
Let's just talk now, damn it. So
Yeah.
so with the startup, anything exciting, anything really interesting you're noticing? Like, is it all AI? Because I noticed with Y Combinator, everything is AI pretty much. Is that with the startups that you're seeing?
Um, there's definitely more than I've ever seen. However, there are some companies that are still solving problems with existing technology that's been around for years, just using software to make things better. But I mean, there's some really interesting kind of far-fetched things going on in the AI space that I would have never thought about a couple of years ago. So it's exciting. I mean, seeing what the next generation of startups are working on.
Now I know you guys we don't have a crystal ball, but going into 2025, what do you think? Positive? You think everything's going to be great, or it won't? Any feel for it? Any vibe check you're getting?
I think it's going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I kind of try to monitor the market, it's not perfect, of course. So I do want to be very transparent about that. But instead of looking at the JOLTS reports, like kind of like what Jen was alluding to before, I monitor like all the public's recruiting and staffing companies, because the only the only way they make money is when companies hire for them, right? So if they're increasing revenue and stuff, that's a good indicator of the market. And on top of that, they give a forward guidance on what they're seeing in the next quarter and the next year. So the first half of this year, everything was so doom and gloom.
Mm-hmm.
Revenue for all these companies are decreasing 10-30% anywhere between their year over year, which is like crazy to think about. But for the second half of the year, things, if you look at their earnings reports, it has a more positive sentiment. And then next year, SIA, Staffing Industry Analysts, projects the industry to grow 5%. To give you comparisons, in 2023 and 24, as you'd imagine, negative double digits. But in 2019, which was a pretty good market, it only grew 3% over 2018. So they're projecting it to be a lot better in 2019, which is kind of crazy to me. So that just
Mm.
gives you some light at the end of the tunnel. But at the same time, you have to be optimistic, right? Because projections are just that, they're projections. It actually has to happen. But in my corner of the market, the second half has been very busy. This is the best December I've had in a long time, which to what Will mentioned is a great indicator. Granted, again, small market, I'm one person, but from where I'm sitting, it's definitely improving. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's
Well,
kind of like a rising tides lifts all boats type of deal.
yeah. One small thing I've noticed is a year ago when we would extend an offer to a candidate, they might get one or two other offers. This year it's starting to tick
Yep.
up. There's more
Yep.
there's more competition. Um,
Yes.
2 years ago, big tech wasn't hiring at all. They're definitely hiring again. And we're definitely competing with big tech offers, which we weren't doing too much of last year. So I think the indicators for me seem that there's going to be a lot of hiring in the tech industry next year.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, Jen. How about
I think
yourself?
so too. Yeah. You know what? Because
Nice.
there's two parts to just like the job market, there's two parts to the stock market, right? There's the data that you're looking at, but there's also the sentiment. I think the sentiment is absolutely off the charts right now. Like you're seeing a lot of people be super optimistic about everything. And it almost seems like because we're thinking that way, we're going to be able to make it happen. So there's a lot actually to the power of positive thinking that I feel like is really going to happen here. And I think that with the new administration, traditionally focused on slashing any sort of red tape and really, expanding what we can do business-wise, I think it's going to be an exciting time to build. And I think it's going to be an exciting time for candidates to enter the market as well.
Yeah. The one thing I will say though, I think the years of companies being super flexible with employees seems to be behind us. So I do think hiring is going to tick up. However, if you want a job, you're probably gonna have to be in an office. So I
Yeah.
don't think
So you
we'll
can't have
kind of go
everything,
back.
basically. It's not going to be perfect. It's
No.
very good.
And,
So it's very good, but there's a catch. You might have to go into the office. So, all right. But I imagine
Yeah,
it's always
and
going to be firm.
I'm even seeing some startups are just openly posting we're 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a
Really?
week. Yeah. So if you want
Wow.
that job, you can go and apply. And I think those companies will probably talk to you because I don't know one wants to work there. But there are, I would say for the most part, though, just generally speaking, like return to office is a real thing. So all these budgets that are being created, I don't think they're going to be created for like super flexible roles.
Yeah, just to give you
agree
a data
there.
point too, I've been seeing like real estate has been going up, like office, like for the longest time, it was all doom and gloom with office buildings. And now all of a sudden you're seeing like deals being made there. So I think, yeah, I agree with you. It seems like they're going to try to push everybody back to the office again, or most people, or a lot of people. But it does seem positive. I agree, Jennifer, I agree so much what you're saying. It just is that vibe. It almost seemed like we were going through just a really tough, the whole country, like a whole tough time. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, wait, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And I think people appreciate it now so much more. Like, yeah, we can do things. This is gonna be good. I think it's just this. I think people just want to feel good.
Yeah.
After a while, just feeling shitty and miserable, you just want to feel good, no matter what. And then you'll find reasons why it's good. You just figure, you just make up reasons why it's good. But
Yeah.
I speak to a lot of people, and they seem to have that same vibe. Where 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a lot of negativity when I would interview people, not too happy. So this is positive. Can I trouble you for maybe before we wrap up? Because a lot of people really, what I find, and I've been recruiting for run a search firm for 25 plus years, placed thousands of people. Still, I've always noticed job seekers are freaked out about recruiters. They don't know what to say, what to do. There's so much misunderstanding. would you all mind just giving maybe a little bit of like, hey, if you're looking for a job, I personally think, and maybe, maybe we're all selfish by saying this because we are recruiters, we're recruiters. So, you feel like it's really an important part of the whole interview cycle and getting hired. So is there anything you could share so people could kind of say, oh, all right, I know I never really wanted to use a recruiter, but here's why I should. Would you guys mind sharing? Because I think it'd be very helpful for people to get those insights.
The way I've always looked at it for candidates that are skittish on using us, because obviously we have a bad rep as an industry, and I don't blame them. Just like car sales or insurance sales. It's like using a sports agent.
Yeah.
Tom Brady had one, Terrell Owens had one, all the best athletes have one because they know what the market they know what the market price is or what the market value is. So at the very least, you get on a call with someone like Jen or Will, they can tell you for a software engineer and financial services, this is kind of like what the market might price you at, and these are the companies who is hiring. On top of that, the benefit of using Jen or Will is you're not applying on a website where you're going to get bombarded, being behind a pile of 4,000 resumes where the recruiter's never going to see you. You're going right to the manager's inbox. So why don't we work as a partnership? Just like I'm a sports agent, I'll handle all the BS of taking care of what your terms are in order to make this work, while being reasonable and realistic, right? We got to manage the expectations, but I'll do all that. I'll make sure you get connected with the right people, and I'll make sure we get a realistic offer for you. So that's like the pitch that I use, and that's why candidates should use us.
To that, I'd
I
say,
like
what
to-
about Lamar Jackson
Mhm.
not having an agent? Sorry, Jennifer, you can
Well,
go.
unless you're like the third best player software engineer in the world, then I think you need an agent. So
I like to think of us as natural network extenders, right? That don't cost anybody anything, right? So if you want a super efficient way to be able to reach, just double your reach, or you just get more reach out there, that would be with one person who's in conversation with people who are in the job market and who are hiring all the time. So I would think about that. And then also the people that I work with never have to fill out any of that the application form or anything else like that. It's going directly, to Rando's point, directly to the hiring manager. We're getting 48-hour feedback on resumes, on interviews. We're advising on process as well to make sure that you're having a good experience. And I'm working with people that I've been referred to or that I've done my homework on. So you're getting vetted hiring managers instead of just, whoever happens to be there interviewing at the time.
Yeah, for me, I think when you look at the two different sides of the market that we're working with here, I think on the client side, working with companies, you're gonna get some feedback on your process. You're gonna hear about what other companies are doing, what's effective with some of their competition, maybe what are they paying other people. And I think a lot of that's true with the candidate side too. Like you're getting a lot of market intelligence that you might not get if you're just going to go and apply on your own and read articles and whatnot. I think like when you get really kind of specific, like I work with a lot of startups. When a candidate gets an offer, how do you think about equity? What should I think about this few years from now? A lot of people see this stuff as a black box, but I mean, if you're working with the right recruiter, you're going to get a lot of intel on this that you wouldn't get on your own. And I'm definitely seeing like I think like the Gen Z generation. I think they've been pretty open to working with recruiters. It's been interesting kind of hearing about some of the things that they're looking for, and now I'm working with a lot of Gen Z founders. I think they're more open to it potentially. But I would recommend, I mean, if you're an engineer and you're looking for a new role, I would talk to a few recruiters and try to understand what's going on in the market before you just go and apply to roles, figure it out on your own.
This is great. I really appreciate all your insights. I think for people who are interested in knowing, like, what should I do? You know, I want to go into tech, or I want to go into financial services, or I want to go into financial service tech. So this is kind of a great way to just show, hey, here's what it's about, get some great insights. Because to me, the recruiters are the best ones to do it, because they know what's going on. They know the people, they know the corporations, they know the vibe, they know what works, what doesn't work. So like, so that you're really sharing the good stuff, not the BS, what everyone else is saying, whatever, it's surveys or this. You're really giving the, here's what's happening. This is what's going on. This is what they're getting paid. This is what they're not getting paid. This is how, you know, a contract work, you know, why someone goes into contract, what's so forth. So I think this is really great, especially offering, you know, sharing what, you know, why a recruiter could help you out. So I really appreciate y'all taking time out. And I think this is one of these things that where people have all these questions, they don't know what to ask. And now I think we answered it for them. So I think this is really cool. So I appreciate your time, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.